Hey, this is Idea Coach. This is Coach East Roan. Weighing in on the weight class for UFC 165, headlined by the main event, the light heavyweight championship, with the challenger Alexander Gustafsson going against the champion Jon Jones. UFC light heavyweight championship, the challenger Alexander Gustafsson versus the champion Jon Bones Jones. It's been a long time coming, but this is the first time that Jon Bones Jones actually gets to defend his belt against someone that's not a champion during his era. Alexander Gustafsson is coming in with a fantastic record of 15-1. Now that one loss is to Phil Davis, and I feel that Phil Davis is one of those kind of fighters who's been pretty much put on the back burner as of until very recently due to his fighting style. I think that Alexander Gustafsson's wrestling, and especially in that fight, was pretty horrendous. His record is impressive. However, it's kind of padded in a lot of ways. After the Phil Davis loss, he fought off guys like the Snake, Diamante, Vladimir Malashenko, Thiago Silva, and Shogun Rua. A few others here and there. But the only fights that he finished were the fights that he had a clear physical advantage over. I mean, he's a large man, and, the Snake is a pretty scrawny guy. He's tall but very slim. Vladimir Malashenko is old and stubby. Matt Hamill, a shorter fighter, very one-dimensional. But his fights against, Thiago Silva and Mauricio Shogun Rua, which led him to the number one contender slot, has shown him be a little aggressive, but not willing to pull the trigger on trying to finish the fight. Now, finishing Shogun in 2 rounds or 3 rounds is very difficult to do, even though Shogun does come around kind of blasé blah in a lot of his recent fights. Jon Jones needs to worry about whether or not this fight goes the distance. He has shown to have a limited gas tank once the fight gets past the 3rd round. In his fight with Rampage Jackson, his hands was down to his waist. And the fight with Rashad Evans that went the complete 5 rounds, he did seem to tire out within the first minute of the 5th round. I don't think Alexander Gustafsson has what it takes to deal with the reach, the striking discrepancies in their skill set, or the ground game to put Jon Jones in any danger in the first 3 rounds. And he's able to survive into round 4, round 5, rounds that Gustafsson's never been there himself. He may have a chance. Other than that, I wouldn't risk it with someone who's a hard hitter and great at defending takedowns like Jon Jones. I see him retaining the belt. UFC Bantamweight Championship fight. The challenger, Eddie Wineland versus the champion, Renado. After the Pride buyout of 2007, there was a lot of talk about how the UFC was going to need time to develop their heavyweight division to match that of the Pride heavyweight division during its peak. The UFC has now done that. But what they need to do is actually develop the divisions below the 155 weight class. Renado, a guy who is 30-1, is facing off against Eddie Wineland, who's 20-8. And the thing is this. Forget the records. Because of the perception of these lower weight fighters, these champions like Renado, like Jose Aldo, like Demetrius Johnson will never have the proper exposure because the UFC, even though they do events on the Ultimate Fighter where they have these, season-long tournaments, they don't place these fighters in main event cards on pay-per-views. The best you're going to get is like a co-main event on a free UFC fight night or something like that. So it really hurts the perception of these lower weight classes, in their divisions on how much importance that the, common fan would have. I'm going to actually not talk so much about the fight itself because I do not believe Eddie Wineland has a chance. If you've ever seen Brahano fight, this guy's like a Tasmanian devil. He's like the WEC version of Jose Aldo. Jose Aldo's a great fighter, but he's not been the same kind of killing machine he was a few years back before all those injuries. Whatever. The problem that the UFC is having with these lower weight fighters is that they need to somehow promote these guys like number one contenderships on pay-per-views. That way, the people who buy, the pay-per-views and the tickets and the media attention that the division itself would get would increase the importance of whoever the champion is. There is no reason that Renado Barano should have to face someone with the record of Eddie Wineland in a situation where no one believes his opponent has any chance of winning. I'm sorry, I think Eddie Wineland's a decent fighter, but he's just not on that level. So my plea to the UFC is now to develop the divisions that are below 155. Yes, they're doing a lot for Ronda Rousey, but outside of Ronda Rousey, how many main event cards do you see women on in the UFC for pay-per-views? Not free events, pay-per-views. And I don't think that until these lower divisions end up going on main cards for people that pay money for them, those divisions will always have a lot of trouble, because a lot of these fighters spend so much of their time developing their craft in these very fly-by-night, fighting leagues like, TFG, Ultimate Fighting, and Cage Fighting, Extreme, Deathmatch Wrestling, and shit like that. This is just something that the UFC cannot neglect at this point if they want to go forward with these lower weight classes. So I do have Renado Barano retaining the Bantamweight Championship. UFC heavyweight bout, Matt Mitrione versus Brendan Schaub. In the marquee heavyweight matchup of the night, we have Brendan Schaub taking on Matt Mitrione, two Ultimate Fighter veterans. Now, I want to just say this. I'm a fan of Matt Mitrione. Yeah, he's not the most exciting fighter. And yeah, his ground game is okay. His striking is okay. But he does have a fighting spirit that I really do like. He does go in there to fight. Brendan Schaub, you can actually kind of say the same thing. I mean, his jiu-jitsu's okay. His striking is okay. But I think in terms of what's going to take place in this fight, I predict Matt Mitrione to win it in the second round via TKO. Brendan does have better striking, technically speaking, than Mitrione, but the thing is that he just doesn't have the jaw to, stop Mitrione from knocking him out for any long period of time. I mean, it was very surprising that Nogueira is actually able to knock him out. Schaub's most notable win was against Cro Cop, but Cro Cop was looking excellent during that fight until his chin got tested for the umpteenth time during that time in his career. I think that Matt Mitrione will probably push the pace in the first round, and there'll be a lot of stalling and striking going on. I think somewhere in the second round, he'll find that opening to expose his chin, and I do predict him being the winner within the first two rounds.